Most men believe female pleasure is a simple formula: touch here, move there, mission accomplished. That belief has destroyed more intimacy than anyone dares to admit. The truth? Female pleasure is not a button to press. It's a language to learn, and most men have been speaking the wrong one their entire lives. I'm Dr. Alex Morrow, a human sexuality researcher with over 20 years of clinical experience studying how desire, emotion, and physiology interact. I've counseled hundreds of couples who came to me convinced that something was broken in their relationship, when in reality, nothing was broken. It was simply misunderstood. And what I discovered over those years completely changed the way I talk to men about pleasure. The biggest myth men believe is that what worked once will always work again. They find one motion, one rhythm, one pattern that earned a sigh or a moan, and they repeat it endlessly, like a code they've cracked. But here's the problem. Women are not static creatures. Their bodies are dynamic, their emotions fluctuate, their hormones shift daily. What felt electric last week might feel numbing today. Repetition creates routine, and routine kills excitement. The body needs variation, communication, and emotional attunement to stay alive in pleasure. When I ask men in private consultations how they learned about the female orgasm, the answers are almost identical: pornography, bragging friends, or sheer trial and error. But these sources teach performance, not connection. Pornography, for instance, sells an illusion, a single universal reaction to a single kind of touch. Real women, however, have layers of sensitivity, and no single move can unlock them all. What works for one woman might fail entirely for another. Science confirms it. Neurological research shows that the female body can access 6 distinct orgasmic pathways, each activated through a different combination of nerves, pressure, and emotional states. These are the clitoral, vaginal, blended, anal, full body, and mental orgasms, and they are as different from each other as laughter is from tears. The clitoral orgasm, for example, is fast, sharp, and concentrated. It's the spark. The vaginal one is slower, deeper, and wave-like. It's the tide. The full body orgasm, often misunderstood, floods the nervous system with energy that spreads far beyond the genitals. The mental orgasm, the rarest, is born entirely in the imagination, triggered by emotional surrender and psychological stimulation. Yet most men never explore beyond the first type. They mistake the clitoris as the finish line instead of the starting point. And it's not their fault. Society trains men to seek results, not responses. In the pursuit of climax, they forget curiosity. They aim for reaction instead of resonance. That's why so many relationships fade into quiet disappointment. The spark is gone because the language of pleasure was never truly learned. Here's a statistic that every man needs to hear. Only about 25 to 30% of women climax through penetration alone. That means 3 out of 4 women are not fully satisfied by what most men consider the main act. When men realize this, their pride often collapses before their curiosity awakens. But awakening that curiosity is the first step to real connection. In my clinic, I often tell men that a woman's pleasure is like a symphony. The clitoral note might start the melody, but the music reaches its peak only when the entire orchestra joins in. Breath, emotion, rhythm, and trust. When you understand how to read her body, you stop performing and start connecting. So, if you've ever wondered why the same move suddenly stopped working, remember this: it's not her losing interest. It's your technique losing meaning. Every woman carries multiple pathways to pleasure, but only an attentive man can discover them. If you want real connection, you need to learn the language of each type, not just the technique. Pleasure isn't magic, it's biology in motion. What most people mistake for mystery is really a symphony of nerves, hormones, and chemistry playing in perfect coordination. Understanding that symphony doesn't make it less romantic, it makes it real. Because when you know how the body works, you stop chasing luck and start creating connection. The female body is an extraordinary design of sensitivity. The clitoris alone contains more than 8,000 sensory nerve endings, which is twice as many as the male organ. But what makes this even more fascinating is that these endings aren't isolated. They branch into an intricate web of nerve fibers that spread through the pelvis, connecting to muscles, organs, and tissues. That's why a single touch can trigger ripples of sensation far beyond where it began. The body doesn't localize pleasure, it expands it. To understand how this happens, you have to look at the three main nerve pathways that transmit pleasure: the pudendal nerve, the pelvic nerve, and the vagus nerve. The pudendal nerve is the most direct route. It carries sensations from the clitoris, vulva, and outer areas. Its messages are fast, electric, and sharply focused. The pelvic nerve, in contrast, carries deeper sensations from the inner vaginal walls and G-spot area. It's slower and more rhythmic, building waves of intensity rather than flashes. And then there's the vagus nerve, one of the body's most mysterious. It connects the cervix and uterus directly to the brain without passing through the spinal cord. This means deep stimulation, or even emotional and mental imagery, can create climax, a phenomenon that still amazes neuroscientists. Each of these nerves contributes a unique pattern, explaining why some women describe distinct kinds of pleasure that feel entirely different from one another. When a woman reaches orgasm, her body transforms into a living storm of energy. The pelvic floor muscles contract in rhythmic pulses, about once every second, creating waves of pressure that the brain reads as euphoria. Inside the brain, neurotransmitters like dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins flood the system. Dopamine delivers reward, that sense of satisfaction and joy. Oxytocin strengthens emotional bonding, making intimacy feel meaningful, not mechanical. Endorphins calm pain and tension, leaving the body in a state of blissful surrender. Brain imaging studies reveal that over 30 regions of the female brain light up during climax, not just those linked to touch, but also to emotion, memory, and consciousness. For a few moments, analytical thinking shuts off, and instinct takes over. It's a full-body reset, a moment where time dissolves and only sensation remains. That's why an orgasm can feel not just physical, but spiritual. But here's the most overlooked truth: the brain is the biggest sex organ. Physical stimulation means nothing without emotional context. For many women, pleasure depends on feeling safe, relaxed, and connected. Stress releases cortisol, a hormone that suppresses oxytocin and dopamine, effectively shutting down the body's ability to climax. That's why tension, pressure, or emotional distance can silence even the most responsive body. Safety, trust, and presence are not extras. They are the very foundation of arousal. When a woman feels emotionally seen, her body opens. When she feels rushed or judged, her system retreats. The nervous system thrives on rhythm, not force. Slow breathing, steady touch, and genuine attention signal the body that it's safe to let go. So when you look at pleasure through a scientific lens, you realize it isn't random at all. It's a biological masterpiece built on synchronization, nerves, hormones, muscles, and emotions moving in harmony. The body isn't just reacting to touch, it's conducting an entire orchestra of sensation, chemistry, and trust. Every woman's body holds hidden architecture, 6 doors to pleasure, each opening to a different world. The reason most men never find them is simple: they look for shortcuts instead of pathways. They rush toward results, chasing fireworks, when what truly moves her is discovery. Every door responds to a unique rhythm, a distinct language of trust, touch, and emotion. Learning to recognize them is not just about skill, it's about awareness. The first door is the clitoral orgasm, the most familiar, yet the most misunderstood. It's the spark that starts the fire, the sharp electric pulse that can turn thought into instinct in seconds. The clitoris is a labyrinth of nerves, more than 8,000 endings waiting for connection, not friction. The mistake most men make is speed. They think intensity equals pleasure. But the clitoral pathway is like striking a match: too much pressure, and it burns out; too little, and it never ignites. What unlocks it is rhythm, teasing, withdrawing, returning, letting anticipation build until sensation becomes surrender. It's the easiest door to find, but also the easiest to misuse. When done right, it's laughter through the body, fast, bright, unforgettable. The second door lies deeper, the vaginal or G-spot orgasm. This one doesn't flash, it rises. The G-spot, a small ridge inside the front wall of the vagina, responds to pressure, not speed. It awakens slowly, gathering sensation like waves building at the shore. Unlike the clitoral climax, this one is emotional, immersive, and often tearful. It's not just pleasure, it's release. Some women describe it as melting, others as losing gravity. When the rhythm is right and trust is present, the G-spot orgasm radiates warmth through the pelvis, softening every muscle. It's a reminder that pleasure is not about reaching the top. It's about staying long enough to let the body unfold. Then there is the cervical orgasm, perhaps the rarest and most sacred of all. This door does not open to force or curiosity, only to deep emotional surrender. The cervix, located at the far end of the vaginal canal, is densely connected to the vagus nerve, the same one that links the heart, lungs, and brain. When stimulated with patience and reverence, it creates an experience many women describe as trance-like, slow waves of energy climbing the spine, a sensation that feels more like expansion than climax. It's a state where time dissolves and emotion takes over, a merging of pleasure, vulnerability, and connection so intense that it can bring tears. The cervical orgasm is not for the impatient. It demands stillness, love, and the kind of presence that says, "I see you completely." The fourth door, often hidden in taboo, is the anal orgasm. It exists where few expect to find it, not in the genitals but in the shared nerve pathways that link the anus and clitoris through the pudendal network. For many, this type of pleasure carries shame or fear, yet physiologically it's powerful, rich in nerve endings and capable of deep waves of sensation. The secret here is relaxation. If the body tenses, it closes. But with trust and care, this door can produce slow, rolling waves that spread across the abdomen and lower back. It is not about dominance, it's about surrender, the pure letting go of control. For couples brave enough to explore it safely and gently, it can transform intimacy into complete vulnerability. The fifth door, often overlooked but profoundly spiritual, is the full-body orgasm. This one defies anatomy, it transcends it. It's not focused on one place, it's energy that moves everywhere. It begins in breath and rhythm, not in friction. Through deep breathing, slow stimulation, and prolonged arousal, the nervous system starts to hum in unison. The energy that once stayed in the pelvis begins to rise, through the chest, the throat, the fingertips. The body becomes one continuous current of pleasure, pulsing from head to toe. There is no single peak. It's a flow, a living river of sensation. Some describe it as feeling, electric, others as weightless, timeless. This type of orgasm requires patience and focus, to breathe instead of rush, to feel instead of finish. When achieved, it feels less like explosion and more like transcendence. And finally, there is the mental or emotional orgasm, the most mysterious of all, because it begins without touch. This one is born in the mind, triggered by anticipation, fantasy, words, or emotional energy. It can happen through eye contact, power dynamics, or the buildup of psychological tension. For some, it's sparked by a whisper or the sound of a voice. For others, by imagining surrender or control. Neuroscience shows that the same brain regions that light up during physical pleasure also activate during deep emotional arousal. That means imagination alone can create a genuine climax. It's proof that the mind is the ultimate erogenous zone. Each of these 6 doors tells a story. The clitoral is laughter, the G-spot is release, the cervical is surrender, the anal is trust, the full body is expansion, and the mental is imagination. They are not ranked. One is not better than another. They are simply instruments in the same orchestra. Some strike, some hum, some echo through the soul. And the man who learns to listen to their different notes doesn't just become a better lover, he becomes fluent in the art of connection. In truth, female pleasure isn't a puzzle to solve, it's a song to be played with care. Each woman's melody is unique, shifting with time, emotion, and energy. The secret lies not in memorizing techniques, but in sensing rhythm, her rhythm. Because when touch, breath, and trust align, these 6 doors don't just open, they dissolve. What's left is not technique, not anatomy, but something far greater, the feeling of being fully alive, together in the same beautiful sound. Pleasure may start in the body, but fulfillment begins in the mind. The greatest mistake men make is believing that understanding her anatomy is the finish line, when in truth, it's only the invitation. What comes next is not technique, not performance, but presence. The real art lies not in what you do to her, but in how deeply you tune into her. Connection is the final, invisible ingredient that turns an act into an experience and a moment into memory. The 6 doors of pleasure aren't meant to be conquered like levels in a game. They are languages, and every woman speaks them differently depending on her mood, trust, and emotional safety. A man may master every technique in the world, but if he's not present, her body will know it instantly. The female nervous system is intuitive. It feels attention, sincerity, and care. If she senses distraction, pressure, or ego, her body quietly closes, like a flower protecting itself from the cold. That's why the most powerful touch often begins long before the skin, in the eyes, the breath, and the energy between 2 people. True connection is physiological. When 2 people breathe in sync, their nervous systems begin to align. Heart rate slow, muscles soften, and the brain releases oxytocin, the chemical of trust. Slow breathing, gentle pauses, and eye contact create a silent communication that words can't match. It's as if the body whispers, "You're safe here." And safety is what unlocks everything else. When a woman feels safe, her body no longer guards itself. It opens, receives, and expresses. In that state, pleasure isn't just physical, it becomes emotional resonance. Men often underestimate this. They focus on performance, chasing visible signs, movement, sound, reaction, thinking those are proof of success. But intimacy is not theater. It's energy exchange. The best lovers aren't those who perform, they're those who listen without ears and see without eyes. They notice the smallest signals, a change in breath, a shift in muscle tension, the way her pupils expand, or her heartbeat quickens. Those are not random details, they're the body's language, the signs that she's either opening further or pulling away. Forget the scripts learned from pornography or locker room myths. Those are choreography, not connection. Real intimacy is improvised, guided by presence, not pride. It means being humble enough to ask, to pause, to explore. It means understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is wait. To slow down when everything in him wants to rush. To feel rather than to prove. Because the moment a man replaces curiosity with certainty, he stops growing. And so does the intimacy. When 2 people move together with awareness, something extraordinary happens. Their boundaries blur. Touch turns into communication, rhythm turns into language, and breathing becomes a shared pulse. Neuroscientists call this interpersonal synchronization, when 2 nervous systems begin to mirror each other. Lovers have known it instinctively for centuries. It's the reason why time feels slower, senses sharper, and emotions deeper in those rare, perfect moments of connection. It's not magic, it's biology elevated by presence. At its core, pleasure is not about taking, it's about giving. The most unforgettable experiences aren't measured by duration or technique, but by emotion, by how deeply she feels seen, understood, and safe. Every woman wants to be touched like a person, not a project. The man who understands this becomes rare, because he doesn't chase pleasure, he cultivates it. He builds trust, creates safety, and turns intimacy into art. And that's the true secret most men never learn. Connection is the climax. Everything else, the touch, the rhythm, the breathing, is just the language that leads there. When you reach that level, every gesture feels sacred. Every breath shared becomes communication without sound. So if you think you've mastered one type of pleasure, remember this: you've only just opened the first door. The journey isn't about knowing her body, it's about knowing her. And when you finally do, the body will follow, not out of technique, but out of trust.